At my son's engagement dinner, I handed him a handwritten recipe book I'd kept for 35 years. His fiancée's mother looked at it like I'd brought roadkill to the table. She laughed and said, "How adorable! A little scrapbook from the help." My son said nothing, not one word. His fiancée slid the book to the edge of the table and placed her wine glass on top of it like a coaster. I smiled, picked it up, wiped the ring of Pinot Noir off the cover, and put it back in my bag. The next morning, I drove to my lawyer's office. When he opened the folder I brought, he looked at me over his glasses and said, "Mrs. Delgado, are you absolutely sure about this? Because once we start, there's no going back." Hey, quick question before we go on. Have you ever given someone your heart and had them treat it like garbage? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And subscribe if you want to hear what happened when my lawyer made that phone call. Just a heads up, some details in this story are fictionalized for storytelling, but the lesson is real. Now, back to what my lawyer found. The engagement dinner was held at Belmont House, a renovated colonial mansion on 6 acres just outside Hartford, Connecticut. White columns, gas lanterns, a terrace overlooking a rose garden that had been featured in 3 wedding magazines, 40 guests, cloth napkins, a string quartet playing Vivaldi near the bar. I arrived in a gray dress I'd bought at TJ Maxx 2 weeks earlier, sensible shoes, my hair pinned up the way I'd worn it for 40 years because anything fancier got in the way when I was standing over a stove. My name is Rosa Delgado. I'm 63 years old. I've been a line cook at Hartwell's Grill for the past 28 years. Breakfast shift, 4 a.m. to noon. Scrambled eggs, hash browns, short order tickets. My hands smell like onions and industrial soap no matter how many times I wash them. My son, Daniel, met Courtney Ashford at a charity gala his firm sponsored. She was 28, blonde, the kind of beautiful that came with a personal trainer and a dermatologist. Her family owned Ashford Capital Partners, a wealth management firm with offices in Hartford and Greenwich. Her father, Richard Ashford, wore suits that cost more than my monthly rent. Her mother, Vivian, wore pearls and a permanent expression like she'd just smelled something unpleasant. Daniel was a good boy once. Grew up in my apartment above the hardware store on Maple Street, shared a bathroom with 2 other tenants, did his homework at the kitchen table while I prepped tomorrow's mise en place. Got a scholarship to UConn, then an MBA, then a job at a consulting firm downtown. Somewhere between the scholarship and the corner office, he stopped calling me Mom in public and started introducing me as Rosa. At the engagement dinner, I was seated at a table near the kitchen entrance, not with the family, not even with Daniel's college friends. I was placed between the event coordinator and the woman who arranged the flowers. When I sat down, the florist looked at my name card and said, "Oh, are you with the catering team? I'm Daniel's mother," I said. She didn't respond. She just picked up her menu. When the main course was cleared, I walked to Daniel's table with the recipe book in both hands. I'd wrapped it in brown paper and tied it with kitchen twine because that felt right. Honest. The book itself was a 3-ring binder with a cracked leather cover. Inside, 212 recipes written in my handwriting over 35 years. Every birthday cake Daniel ever ate. The pozole my mother taught me before she died. Notes in the margins like Danny likes extra cheese and add more cumin next time. Some pages were stained with oil. Some had little drawings Daniel made when he was 6, sitting on a stool next to me while I cooked. I held it out to him. "For you and Courtney. Everything I know about feeding a family." Daniel took it carefully. He smiled, but it was the smile he gave clients. Professional. Measured. "Thanks, Mom. That's really thoughtful." Vivian leaned over, her perfume arriving before her words. She took the binder from Daniel's hands and flipped it open. "A recipe book?" She turned a page. "Handwritten?" She looked at me with that smile, the one that had teeth in it. How adorable. "A little scrapbook from the help." Courtney laughed. Not loud, just a small laugh, the kind that tells you someone agrees but doesn't want to be the one who said it out loud. She took the binder from her mother and set it on the edge of the table. Then she placed her wine glass directly on the cover. The condensation from the glass bled into the leather. I watched a dark ring form on the cover my mother had given me the year I got married. Daniel saw all of it. He looked at the wine glass on the book, then at me, then at Courtney. He said nothing. He reached for his water and took a sip. I didn't make a scene. I picked up the binder, wiped the moisture off with my napkin, and put it in my bag. "Thank you for a lovely evening," I said to the table. Then I walked out through the kitchen entrance because that felt appropriate, past the dishwashers and the prep cooks and the line that smelled like home. That night, I sat in my apartment above the hardware store. The building was quiet. Mr. Peterson downstairs had gone to bed at 8 like he always did. The pipes knocked every 15 minutes. The recipe book sat on my kitchen table, the wine stain still visible on the cover. I didn't cry. I stopped crying about being disrespected sometime around 1998. Instead, I walked to the hall closet and pulled out a filing cabinet I'd kept behind the winter coats. I opened the bottom drawer with a key I wore on a chain around my neck. Inside that drawer was every document I'd never shown my son. Property deeds, 39 of them, organized by purchase date. LLC formation papers for RMD Holdings, my initials. Bank statements from 4 accounts at 3 different banks. A stock portfolio I'd built over 30 years buying index funds every month like clockwork. I pulled out the summary sheet I updated every January. Total real estate holdings, 39 properties across Connecticut and Massachusetts. Estimated portfolio value, $27 million. Liquid assets across all accounts, $6.3 million. I set one deed on the table, separate from the rest. Belmont House LLC, acquired in 2021 for $3.1 million. The colonial mansion on 6 acres just outside Hartford. The venue where my son had just gotten engaged. The terrace where Vivian Ashford called me the help. The table where Courtney set her wine glass on my mother's recipe book. It was mine. Every white column, every gas lantern, every rose in that garden belonged to Rosa Delgado. Line cook, breakfast shift, scrambled eggs, and hash browns. I started buying property in 1996. I was 35, divorced, raising Daniel alone on a cook's wages plus tips. A regular customer at Hartwell's, a retired real estate agent named Earl, came in every Tuesday for the same thing. 2 eggs over easy. Rye toast, black coffee. One morning he told me about a duplex on Cedar Road going to auction for $38,000. Everyone said it was a dump. I drove by after my shift, looked at the bones of the building, and saw what Earl saw. Potential. I bought it with everything I'd saved. Learned to fix drywall from library books, replaced the plumbing myself on weekends while Daniel played in the yard, rented both units to families like mine. Single parents, night shift workers, people who needed a break on the deposit. The rent covered the mortgage in 14 months. Then I bought another property. Then another. $300 here, $500 there. 30 years of patience. Nobody builds an empire by spending. You build it by showing up. I never told Daniel because I wanted him to understand something his father never did. Money earned through honest work has weight. Money given has none. I wanted my son to respect the woman who cooked his meals and packed his lunches, not because she had millions, but because she showed up every day at 4 a.m. and never once complained. He didn't learn that lesson. He learned to be ashamed of where he came from. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Frank Reyes. Frank had handled every property purchase for RMD Holdings since 2003. He was the only person on earth who knew exactly what I was worth. "Rosa," he said when I walked into his office. He gestured toward the chair across from his desk. His office was small, on the 2nd floor above a dry cleaner. Frank didn't need a fancy office. He was the smartest person in any room he walked into. "What's going on?" I set a folder on his desk. "I need you to do 3 things. First, I want you to cancel all future event bookings at Belmont House under the name Ashford." He raised his eyebrows but opened the folder. "Second, I want you to start conversion paperwork. Belmont House is going to become transitional housing for single mothers. 12 units. Frank looked up. "Rosa, that property generates $400,000 a year in event revenue. Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything. And third, I need the name of a private investigator, someone who handles financial cases." Frank studied my face for a long moment. Then he pulled a business card from his desk drawer. "Lorraine Chen, former IRS criminal investigations. She's quiet, thorough, and she doesn't ask unnecessary questions. I took the card. "What's this about, Rosa?" Frank asked. "My son is marrying into a family that manages other people's money. I want to make sure they're managing it honestly." Frank leaned back. "And if they're not? Then my son needs to know before he signs a marriage license." Lorraine Chen looked like a librarian. Mid-50s, reading glasses on a beaded chain, cardigan over a blouse. She carried a canvas tote bag instead of a briefcase. When I met her at a diner 3 miles from my apartment, she ordered chamomile tea and took notes in a small leather journal with a mechanical pencil. "Mrs. Delgado," she said after I'd explained what I needed. "Background checks on a wealth management firm are complex. This could take 2 to 3 weeks. I have time. My son's wedding is in 6 weeks." She nodded. "I'll start with public filings and work inward. If there's something there, I'll find it." I believed her. There was something about Lorraine Chen that reminded me of myself. Quiet competence. The kind of person who didn't need to announce what she was capable of. 12 days later, Lorraine called me. "We need to meet." The diner was nearly empty at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. Lorraine slid a manila folder across the table and opened it to the first page. Ashford Capital Partners manages approximately $180 million in client assets, pension funds, retirement accounts, trust funds for minors. She tapped a column of numbers. Over the past 2 years, Richard Ashford has been transferring client funds into a series of shell companies registered in Delaware. The transfers are structured to avoid regulatory triggers. "How much?" I asked. $2.7 million confirmed. "Possibly more." She turned to the next page. "He's been generating falsified quarterly reports showing normal returns while the actual accounts are depleted. 3 clients have already filed complaints with the SEC, but the cases are moving slowly." I felt the room get colder. My son was about to marry into a family built on stolen retirement money. "There's more," Lorraine said. She pulled out a photograph. Richard Ashford meeting with a man I didn't recognize at a restaurant. "This is Kenneth Morse. He's a disbarred attorney who specializes in helping people hide assets offshore. They've met 4 times in the past month. Does my son know? I've found no evidence that Daniel is involved or aware. His consulting firm is completely separate. Courtney's name doesn't appear on any of the shell companies either, though she benefits from the lifestyle her father's fraud supports." I sat with that for a moment. Richard Ashford was stealing from pensioners and retirees, people who'd worked their whole lives, people like the regulars at Hartwell's who came in for eggs and coffee because that was their small daily luxury. And my son was about to join that family. "What do you recommend?" I asked. "That depends on what you want. I want my son protected, and I want those clients to get their money back." Lorraine closed the folder. "Then we go to the SEC. They already have complaints. This will accelerate the investigation." "Not yet. I need to do this at the right time and the right place." She studied me over her reading glasses. "You're planning something specific." "I'm planning a dinner. At Belmont House. 3 weeks from Saturday. Everyone will be there." Lorraine didn't smile, but something shifted in her expression. "I'll have everything documented and ready." The next 3 weeks moved slowly. I worked my shifts at Hartwell's. Eggs, toast, hash browns, coffee. The morning regulars didn't know anything was different. Hank with his decaf and newspaper, Maria with her oatmeal and orange juice, the UPS driver who always wanted extra bacon. Daniel called twice. I let both go to voicemail. The first message was casual. "Hey Mom, Courtney wants to discuss seating for the wedding. Can you send your guest list? Keep it short. We're tight on space." The second was annoyed. "Mom, I really need that list. Also, Vivian says the engagement dinner photos turned out great. She's putting them in the newsletter. Call me back." Newsletter. Vivian Ashford was putting engagement photos in a newsletter while her husband stole from retirees. I called Frank instead. "How's the conversion going?" "Permits are filed. Demolition crew can start in 10 days. Rosa, the Ashfords have a corporate retreat booked at Belmont for next month." When I canceled it, Vivian Ashford called my office personally. She was not pleasant. I imagine she wasn't. She asked who owned the property.